before that, though, today marks another important date on the lockdown roadmap, and this one really is actually on the road. Driving tests are allowed to resume in England and Wales.
Yes, good news for lots of people. This morning, Alice Beers at the UK's busiest test centre to meet some learner drivers, hoping to swap their L plates for a P plate. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning. Yes, look at all these people coming out now. See, the people in high vis are the examiners, and the poor people with them, they are taking their test right here, right now, on the first morning after lockdown has ended, and they're being asked to read the number plate. Then they have to inspect the car, has to be completely COVID compliant, candidate in a mask, nothing on the dashboard, nothing in the pockets, dashboard wiped down, windows have to be open during the test, and then the test can begin. Now, are these people going to pass their test this morning? There is one hell of a lot of pressure on them to pass because, as you say, this is the first morning that driving tests in England and Wales have been able to commence again. For the most part of the last year, there hasn't been a single test. That means we've got a backlog of nearly 500,000 learner drivers waiting to take their test. Now, the national average for pass rate is about 49%, so just under half. This test centre, the Goodmayes test centre, just outside Ilford in Essex, has a pass rate of about 38 to 39%, so just under the national average. We have seen some success this morning. Can I tell you, though, if you ever want a morning's entertainment, forget Netflix, pull up a chair and park it outside a driving test centre, because we've had it all this morning. We've had the kangarooing, we've had somebody nearly clip the gates as they came out on their test. We've had braking, we've had, honestly, I can't tell you, it's been a white knuckle ride just watching it, but it is flipping hilarious.
Nice
it's
indicator
really,
going on
really
behind you.
good
That's what
money.
you've got to remember. Don't forget your indication.
I know,
there we are. Well
Exactly
done.
that.
On your way.
I can't tell you. So many of them not indicating. It's ridiculous.
She's become an instructor.
If you... I know, honestly, cameraman Lee and I have been, oh, no, not a chance.
Just turn around and go back to the centre because you've already failed. The trouble is, but as you say,
absolutely,
if you make a mess of it today, then there's a hell of a long time before you can have another go.
It's 17 weeks to get back to the start. Some people, their theory test, when they've taken their theory test, you then have a 2-year period to take your driving test. And if that 2-year period elapses, you then have to take your theory test again. So it's all a complete mess. But yeah, 17 weeks wait, so absolute pressure to pass first time. All people coming back, coming back. Now, listen.
Has it started?
No, gone straight past, straight past. Yeah, no indicator going. Yes, indicator going.
Oh, look, as if they're not nervous enough. Here we are, putting them on national television.
Oh, I know.
It's terrible.
Do you know, just an interesting fact, Jenson Button didn't pass his test first time, and I know of other people who didn't pass their test first time.
Thank you, Alice. Who would that be?
Is that me you're talking about?
How many attempts?
Well, I thought Ollie, our producer, said, how many times it take you? And I texted him, I was like, oh, it was a bit embarrassing. It took me 4 times. My mum, however, confirmed it was 5.
5 times.
5
what
times.
Went wrong?
Me, probably.
Well, it's not the car, is it?
well, this is what happened. So my nan bought me a car, OK, when I was about to drive, and I had this little Ford Ka, and I loved it, adored it. And I wanted to take the test in my car. And my driving instructor kept saying I wouldn't because they get quite nervous when they don't have the dual brakes, take it in my car. But I was so used to how my car drove that I insisted. The time I took it in his car, I passed. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Good excuse. Alice, thank you very much. Thank you. She's still watching.
Thank you. I'll try to find you a successful candidate.
Yes, do.
There we go. There's another one. Nice clear indication. Out you go. Good luck to everyone who's taking it.
Yeah, good luck.
It's nerve-wracking at the best of times. It was mine first time, but there we go.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Everyone has a driving test story, but we think Janine Mars might give everyone a little bit of a run for their money. She was dubbed Britain's worst driver after taking 14 years and spending £6,000 to pass her test. She joins us now. Although you dispute that, you don't say that you are Britain's worst driver.
No, I cannot be Britain's worst driver. There's got to be people far worse than me.
Well, what you do say is, in actual fact, that you were Britain's most persistent learner.
That's it.
That's how I describe myself. I think I'm just a very persistent learner, and I just tried and tried, and it just took me a little bit longer to get there than perhaps the average.
We're going to redial you because we got a bit of a rubbish line there, Janine, so we'll redial you and come straight back to you in just a second. Angela says it took me 5 attempts to pass.
See? Good girl.
On my first test, I nearly ran someone over and also kept continuously going round and roundabout and didn't know which exit to come off at. Couldn't believe it when I passed.
Oh, my goodness me. Katie Jane says it was pouring down with rain and really windy on the day of my test. I asked my examiner if I could open the window a little, but instead of pressing my button, I accidentally opened the passenger window. The examiner's papers flew all over the car and he got soaked from the rain. He didn't say much to me after that.
Nikita says I passed my theory on the 8th time and failed 9 driving tests. On my 10th test, the examiner told me I passed, and I didn't believe it because it was April Fool's Day.
Amanda says, I was on the way to the test centre and drove into a lamppost. Luckily, there wasn't too much damage to the car, so I was still able to take my test. I'm glad the examiner didn't ask me what happened, yeah.
Sharon says, I've never known my left from my right, so every time the driving examiner told me to turn one way, I turned the other. At the end of the tests, he said, unfortunately, you have passed, as I cannot fail you for not knowing your left or your right.
What?
What?
Who knew that? I mean...
Really?
Fair. There you go. Helen said, I failed my test 5 times. In the end, I decided that some people are supposed to drive and some people are supposed to be driven. All I can say is thank goodness for taxis.
We're struggling with Janine, but we've got her back, but I think the line must be... It's pretty much the same. What was it in the end, Janine, that got you through? Because it was actually Wales.
That's correct. So what happened is after I was dubbed Britain's worst driver, I think inverted persistent learner, I had an instructor to me and say she knew med roads and knew they were difficult, but actually she lived in Wales and said, I believe I can pass you, anybody can learn to drive. I always used to joke that I was born to be driven, but apparently I could be taught to drive.
And you passed, you passed with that.
After 2 attempts, I passed my driving test.
So it is possible.
Yes.
And there are still things you avoid, though, aren't there?
Oh, 100%. So I'm still hillstarts, and I definitely try not to rush. Like, I give myself lots of time, I plan my route, like I'll check it on maps. And there's still places I don't like. So there's one particular shopping area that I'm not keen on driving on because it's a very terrible one-way system. So I'll actually park up and just walk to get there.
Well, that's wise. Hillstarts are a bit of a nightmare.
Yes. And also, do you know what? Sometimes I think this is what I used to say anyway. The more tests you have, the more practice you've had. So in theory, I think you're a better driver.
Precisely.
You've had more of the education behind you.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Janine, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Janine.
Safe driving.